Yeah. What I am trying to solve, or the problem that I am trying to solve with this proposal is to allow AFRINIC to enter into a market that is already working for transfers, not just for IPv4, but also for IPv6 and ASNs. I think we are really behind, we in terms of this region are really behind that market, and especially in the next coming months where AFRINIC is going to enter in the new exhaustion phase, that will be, not being in that market will be really, really negative for the ISPs in this region. So how I am addressing the problem, I understand that the concerns of inter-RIR transfers are, if we allow that, the resources existing in this region can go to other regions, okay? So I am trying to find a way to put a limit on that. And the limit that I believe we should have on that is allowing outbound transfers only for legacy resources. So that's basically the core point of the proposal. If we don't do that, I believe that might happen under the table, and that means AFRINIC is missing the point of the registration, which is one of the key points of the AFRINIC membership, right? There is one additional thing is, people believe that for doing the IPv6 transition, it may be sufficient with the resources they have today, but my main job, my real job, not policy making, is helping people to deploy IPv6, and in many situations we reach to the point where an ISP wants to deploy IPv6 and then don't have a small set of IPv4 resources to do that. So not having that means is endangering also the IPv6 transition for some ISPs. For the big ones probably not, but for the small ones it might have an impact. Let me go through the text again very quickly. I am not going to read everything, but what I am proposing is that the resources can be transferred from AFRINIC to other registries that provide also the same kind of policy with some specific provisions. The first one is the minimum size /24 for IPv4, /48 for for IPv6, and then making sure that if the resources, as I just explained it, if the resources are transferred from AFRINIC to outside, they are only from legacy resources. Then I have some details about timing and so on, so to avoid anyone abusing the policy and getting resources and then selling them and getting new resources and selling them again and so on. Let me keep going. One of the discussions that we had in the mailing list is some people agree with this policy proposal only for IPv4, and they believe that it should not be used for IPv6 and ASN. I want to remember you that in the presentation from James this morning, he was saying that one of the problems of the actual intra-RIR policy is that only allows IPv4. So that's backing my proposal that we should also allow ASN and IPv6. And I provided in the list in the last couple of days, we had a lot of discussion of this, rationale for this. If a company or a part of a company is sold from Europe to AFRINIC, they will like to move the resources instead of renumbering all the machines, because today, most of the time, you will not move physical machines. You will move virtual machines overnight, and tomorrow you wake up in a different data center. And of course, you want to be registered in the local registry, so in this case in AFRINIC, or in the other way around, I never mind. So there is a rationale for allowing transferring also IPv6 and ASN. We don't have a scarcity of that, but there are reasons to say, let's do all the way. And if we don't have the possibility to have also these transfers in this region, it means that business that going to establish in African countries will not, because they will have very easy ways to get resources in every region, but not in AFRINIC. So I really think this is good for the region as well as good for the rest of the world. So this discussion that we had in the mailing list, there was some proposed text to improve the policy proposal that I initially sent, just to make sure that in the case of ASN and IPv6, this is limited to situations of companies which are under merger and acquisition or relocation or things like that. So that's the text that I also would like to say. This is kind of example in terms of merger, acquisition, or relocation, but I would like to allow the AFRINIC staff to keep the policy open for other cases that maybe we don't understand right now. Okay, so in principle, the text is only for merger, acquisition, or relocations of companies or devices, neither they are physical or virtual, but we don't know if there are cases which are equivalent to these ones, and I think we must trust the staff to be able to support those, okay? So that was precisely the comment I was having this morning in disagreement with Alan. Alan said, let the staff decide and do our policies in a way that they can do changes. I don't think so. They can do changes when we decide they can do changes, or they can, let's say, soft adapt the policies to cases that were not thought when the policy was originally drafted. Reference, there are equivalent policies in AFRINIC, ARIN, RIP. LACNIC is discussing exactly the same text. And one interesting thing is, many people believe that the addresses will go out of AFRINIC if we allow this kind of policy. I already defined it that the limit will be legacy, so there is a limit on the number of resources that can go out. But looking at the numbers, at the statistics of what is going on in this global market right now, the region that is exporting more resources is ARIN. So I don't think that will change because AFRINIC comes into the market. It will keep the same. I have, okay, the staff analysis, I think it was just 3 minor changes. I think wording like ownership and things like that. And I adapted that in this version, so that was for the previous version, so I think that's covered. And let me show some numbers. I took these numbers from IANA webpage. You have the reference in the bottom of the slide. So ARIN has, according to the data from IANA, 75/8s, which are legacy. AFRINIC has only 2, APNIC 6, LACNIC 1, RIP 8. So how come it's possible that AFRINIC can lose from this, let's say, operation? No way, because there are more possibilities of resources coming in than coming out if we have the limit of the legacy only, okay? So that's the first slide that shows some numbers, some facts. Second slide, coming from the NRO, I think these are statistics for the end of June, but I don't think it changed too much. I tried to get more updated stats, but I didn't got them. This is the distribution, the global distribution of /8s. So again, we see that we have less space here than in the rest of the region. So again, even we don't have the limit of the legacy, the possibilities of having more resources going out than coming in, it's not logic. It cannot happen, okay? This is the transfers among the different regions that support this kind of transfers today, which are, again, APNIC, ARIN, and RIP NCC. As you can see, in terms of number of transfers, the one that is doing more transfers outside is ARIN, which is doing 223 to APNIC and 125 to RIP, okay? So again, I don't think according to this, there is a possibility that the situation will reverse. The market will go in the same direction. And if the need is coming from AFRINIC, there will be the same number of transfers coming to AFRINIC, and probably not that many number of transfers to outside. Again, the limit will be the legacy resources that we have here. Same slide in terms of number of IPv4 addresses. You see that from 18 to AFRINIC is 16.5 million addresses, and from 18 to RIR 5.6 million addresses. So again, it shows the same trend. It's not really changing across the time. If you look at these statistics 3 months before and 6 months or 1 year, it's about the same. So the major exporter of addresses is adding to the rest of the other regions. And that's it. I think it shows, it proves that there is not a chance that we, in the sense of AFRINIC, we are going to lose having this kind of policy, but on the other way around, I think we are going to win the possibility of having access to a market that today we cannot have. And of course, keep the accuracy of the registration, because if this happens outside the registration services, we don't keep the accuracy of that information. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordi. Thank you, Jordi. So we are looking for staff comment, staff legal comment.
Yeah, as Jordi says, the first proposal, we had a few very minor words to correct regarding ownership, which he did, and the second version did not present any issues because what was noted in the first were all addressed. So that's it.
Thank you, Ernest. With that, we are opening the mic for question, comments. So Alain, please, right?
Yes, my first comment is about the statistics on the legacy from the IANA. I was expecting Ernest to try to address this, because saying that from IANA website, AFRINIC only have 2. So I think you are referring to from the IANA the blocks which is administered by AFRINIC
as legacy resources. Only
yes,
legacy.
But if you look at it, AFRINIC does not control all the blocks. So AFRINIC, for example, there, if you go to IANA, you will see like AFRINIC, okay, as a legacy, AFRINIC manage, for example, the 196, but AFRINIC does not have the full block. Same for the other. So, and when we talk about the legacy in AFRINIC context, it does not only mean that the numbers from IANA exactly. This one, I don't think this is very accurate, because AFRINIC database has the real number of the legacy space we have. This is the first thing. And then
that's what I said. This is taken from IANA. I am not really sure it's completely accurate.
Okay, good. Then can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
The last slide of the on the statistic.
This one or this one?
This one.
Okay.
This one or the other one.
Okay.
So if I look at this, then the question I have is, why can't we just make the policy just for inbound, just to allow numbers to come? Because you said ARIN is the one exporting.
Because
so, wait. Okay. So we said ARIN is the one exporting. So normally, if we just accept the inbound, it should work. Then they should give us. Then we keep our numbers here. Thank you.
Simple answer, Alan. The problem is that in the other regions, they make their policies to say that they will only allow those transfers if there is reciprocality. Just to protect themselves the same way as you want to protect. Exactly. But that's the protection. That's the protection, Alan.
Yeah. Well, you said he has a follow-up question to that one, so I don't know whether I should allow him.
Yeah, please allow him.
Then I'll come back. Thank you.
It depends.
So a quick follow-up to that. Now, you are proposing an outbound, right? So what about other regions that the IPv6 are not exhausted? Why will they need the IPv6 from AFRINIC?
I explained it before. The thing is, if you have a company established in AFRINIC and this company is moving to RIR, maybe they want to keep together all the resources and transfer them to their new location in RIR, or in the other way around. That's the reason for that.
Okay, so a quick follow-up question also is that why can't we, this is a proposal actually, you mentioned that there is a maximum, there is a minimum that should IPv4 blocks, which is /24
for IPv4
/22. So why can't we have a maximum proposal as well for a block? I have not seen /24 this time, and because of what we have in the region, we need to manage the resources. We should perhaps have like the maximum that should not be exceeded.
Okay, I see that. Nobody suggested that in the mailing list. That's why we didn't discuss it about that. It will have been having that discussion 1 or 2 weeks ago, but nobody contributed to that. But in any case, I am not sure if we do that, we will have that reciprocality with other regions. So I am not sure if that, then they will accept it, and then the policy may be useless. But anyway, I don't think having a maximum makes too much sense, in the sense that a minimum is probably for routing purposes and things like that more than anything else, but I don't think it makes sense a maximum. I am happy to accept that if the community thinks that it's the way it should be, but I am not really sure it makes sense.
Okay.
I think we need to analyze that.
I have more questions, but I will yield.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will give 1 minute, one question. Then we will answer after we finish all.
I need to write down then everything.
Yes. We really run behind the schedule. Okay, Marco.
Yeah, I have in the summary of his policy proposal, he used 3 strong words. I think we need to clarify it. Market that already exists, lagging behind, and the third one is negative. Please, could you explain those words for us, and then I will come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Komi Elicha from Togo. I have quite a set of questions, and one of them is about markets, because I went on AFRINIC website and I tried to search markets. I got 6 results, and the result I got, the first one from the bottom to the up: soft landing overhaul, outreach activities, about proposal inter-IR resource transfer, and again inter-IR resource transfer version 1, version 2. So I want more definition on markets in a IR context.
Okay.
Okay, so the author said on RPD mailing list that intra-transfer is not, which we have implemented in AFRINIC context, is not sufficient enough to solve his problem statement. Okay, I wonder if he has any data to back this fact up. Has he ever got any data about the transfers occurring in our region?
Yes. Point taken.
And also, are not the legacy space supposed to move freely between regions? That's my last question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Oui, je m'appelle, je parle en...
My name is Sheikh Mabrouk. I'm from Mauritania. My question is the following. Do you have a dashboard for the follow-up of the shift from PV4 to PV6 per country, or the training policy that could be applied to reinforce to build the capacities of the candidates? And are there any priority for the test in, test out, or an organization policy on the basis of the different African zones? Number 2, in the exchange chart as displayed on the screen, we notice that the absence of AFRINIC from its geographic position is could be probably a way to shift all the information to the remaining countries in this zone. Thank you.
My name is Suad. I'm from Algeria. I'm an AFRINIC fellow. I'm a student in the Higher School of Computer Science in Algiers. So actually I got confused about RIR, about the word regional. Is it territorially executive government, or body or regional internet facilitator? In other words, what do you mean exactly by the word regional in this abbreviation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please, yeah.
Gregor Eumi from Benin. In the proposal, you said when legacy is coming to AFRINIC, they will lose the status of the legacy. But do you think that that will happen? Because in the other region, when you move it, it still remains legacy. So people that hold the legacy right now, they don't want to lose that status. So why do we need a policy that the implementation may not be used? Thank you.
The queue. So who is the last person here? Lou, I think. Leave. I didn't see because. Okay. So how many here? 5, 6, 6. 6 here. 3.
Yeah, 6.
And 3 there. Okay. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Ish Sukan. I work for La Sentinelle Limited, and I'm from Mauritius. My question will be mostly like, Jody, when you did your presentation, you clearly stated there is a major concern in the community about resources only leaving the region. Then why don't you accept the proposal of setting a maximum? You set the maximum, you let the consensus happen and see the trend, what is happening. Whether this is resources are only growing or resources are coming also before making further changes to your policy.
Thank you. It's already, I think it's already asked. Please.
Yeah, Daniel. I think in the spirit of FDI, that is foreign direct investment, where you want to, I think that's what I hear from most African governments, they need some monies from outside. In that spirit, I think if I will want to come from a place where I have the money, for example, Europe, to come and set up a company, and I like what Jody said, and I want to just re-emphasize that point, that if I want to run the business even outside, I think allowing both side flow, because definitely if you say you will be collecting from RIN only, it doesn't make sense. Somehow, somebody in ripe NCC will require, and if the idea is that, okay, let's allow both side flow, but let's see which flow is higher. Is it out or in? So I want to re-emphasize that in the spirit of what I said, foreign direct investment. Thank you.
This Pascal from Nigeria. My major concern was initially when I saw it was in the quotes actually, but the restriction to legacy resources actually clarified that. And I think this proposal keeps all deals on the table. There is nothing under the table, because I believe right now there are still, even though this policy has not been implemented, there are still transfers going on. And I mean, I don't know if they follow best practices. I can't say, but I believe this keeps everything on the table. I think it's a nice policy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Peace from Nigeria. Just to comment on what Jody already said, I don't have a question, but rather I comment. I want to say that the inter-RIR resource transfer policy will help by having IPs from other regions. After all, internet is one. It knows no boundary. IP shall be, therefore, we should allocate IP to every person who needs it. By allowing this transfer, we should be able to allow IP to everybody that needs it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Yukera from Nigeria. In my own opinion, I think that the inter-RR transfer is good for AFRINIC in the terms that it creates cordial relationship between AFRINIC and other IRR, and it will also help the whole of Africa to be able to be involved in the use of internet, which is one of the goal of AFRINIC. Like yesterday's report that was given by one of the presenters, that he displayed the chart. My own country was not even found among the top 10 countries. So I think AFRINIC really need this. Thank you.
Marcos?
Well, I said he should answer those three or clarify those ambiguous concepts so that I come back.
Alors, donc je peux continuer?
So I can resume.
What's your question?
Well, I don't want to start commenting when things, because they are ambiguous, they are not clear. What does it mean by market that already exists? What does it mean by we are lagging behind? And the third one is negative.
He want me to answer to the questions.
Yeah, well, I need an answer to.
Yeah.
Not now, Jordi, please.
Okay.
Ok, merci.
Thank you. I'm going to answer in French, if you don't mind. I'm surprised to see this policy that we call it inter-IRR. Really surprised. Why? Because if my memory is still fresh, there was a policy that used to be called inbound that we have already rejected, even though it was good for us. If we could provide some resources, it's all good, but to lose some resources out of question, we don't have enough, and then to allow these resources to go out, no question. But if we can have some resources in, this is of course quite acceptable, but I don't know what this policy would like to resolve. We are talking about the legacy, and these networks are not controlled by the networks in Africa. There is no relationship whatsoever with the AFRINIC bodies, so I don't see why AFRINIC is going to set up a policy that will be entrusted with the management of resources that cannot be seen. So the resources could be going and coming back haphazardly. There is no good vision by AFRINIC about this, so I don't see what kind of solution we can talk about here. Now, with regards to IPv6, everybody's got IPv6, so why do we have to go on transferring IPv6? I don't see the usefulness of this policy. And we also say that we can take away some legacy resources to have any kind of resources or any conventional resources. I really doubt it. A new structure will accept this, that you provide with legacy resources so that it will send you some resources to be included in the database. Now we can call this policy as inbound policy. It's as simple as that.
Maybe we'll go the remote at the end. Okay.
I heard from someone the remote comment now still not working. Is it working? Could you confirm that, maybe? I heard from some remote participants they can't access the remote chat room.
Remote is working, Lou.
It's working now.
It is working now. Oh, just fix it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, about this policy, well, I supporting this policy. This policy will be facilitate AFRINIC to its global market, which is a global trend. All the other three IRs has been part of the market, and the market was open. And I don't see a problem for AFRINIC to participate in this particular market. And I believe the text can be more profound. Some of the small details might need to be improved in this particular policy, but overall I don't see any problem with it. And do I get my 30 seconds now or later? Sammy? Do I get my 30 seconds now or later? You said I can respond.
Not now?
Yeah, later.
Later, yes.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Yasmin from Sierra Leone. So my question is, and I'm an AFRINIC fellow. So my question is, how would the reciprocity work from RIR? So will the resources be replenished, or is it something that will be wasted during the transfer process, especially for IPv6 less countries or systems? Because yesterday during the presentation, my country was also not represented, which was not much of a surprise, but I just wanted to know what does it mean from a government standpoint and those of us in the private sector. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. So it's Nitin speaking in my own capacity. So just my comments about this policy. I think the inter-IR policy as applied for other regions are still new. I believe it may be too premature for such a policy, as it's hard to predict how actually the market will change, because that's I think it's very too premature. So thank you.
Thank you, Madhvi, for remote participation.
Yes. Vivien Paris, Laris Cloud Services. I quote, I support the policy. I think it by and large benefits the development of business in the African region. Other regions show already this policy works perfectly well and is beneficial. Willy Manga, I quote, I'd like to emphasize that it's worthwhile to say to people to name their resources and don't rely absolutely to numbers. It's important if we want to encourage the community to move towards IPv6. Second item, regarding IPv6 ASN's transfer, my first intent was to restrict it to M&A if AFRINIC staff prefers to have the choice to decide, it's okay from my side. So that's all from remote participation.
Thank you, Madhvi. Jordi, please.
Okay. Let me try to answer all the questions. The first one was trying to clarify three concepts on this slide for you, Marcus, I think it was. Yeah? Yeah. So the thing is, you asked me to clarify what is a market somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The thing is, as you have seen in the graphics with the transfers between AFRINIC, ARIN, and RIP, there are companies that they have been able to reuse or make a better usage of their existing resources, so they have free pools of addresses and they put them on the market. That's the market. I don't know what else you want for me to explain, but that's the definition of the market. And also there are legacy resources that were not under the control of the registries, and they are also in that market. That's the explanation that I can give you about the market. I am not sure exactly what is the point on your question, but I hope I am answering that.
The second point, the
second point was, behind. What was the second point? Sorry.
Lagging behind.
Yes. The thing was, you are approximately in May, if I recall correctly from what was said yesterday, you are going to enter in the next phase of the IPv4 exhaustion. Okay? That means that the number of resources that an ISP will be able to get will be limited. And in the other regions, there is much IPv6 takeoff compared to here, and they have been participating in the market already since earlier, so if they need some resources for this IPv6 transition or just to grow their existing IPv4 networks, they can have that. In this region, you are limited right now to intra-RIR transfers. And that's difficult to believe that it will work because the penetration of internet in Africa is growing. So if it's growing, it means that a company from Africa selling resources to another company in Africa, it's not going to happen, or it's going to happen at a higher price because the resources are limited to what you have in this region. You see the point?
Go ahead.
Okay, and the last one was?
Negative.
Let me find the slide because I don't remember what I had there. Negative, negative, negative. In which slide? I don't remember anymore. Sorry. So it's in the proposal text?
Yes. You even mentioned it when you were in your presentation.
It's difficult to remember all the slides from top of the... So which specific point?
Look into the summary of the problem statement.
Here?
You even mentioned it when you were doing your submission.
Oh, okay, the summary of the problem. Well, it's the same. I mean, it's negative for the region because you cannot deploy IPv6 if you don't have the resources for doing that, or you cannot grow your existing IPv4 number of users unless you invest more in carrier grade NAT. And if you invest more in carrier grade NAT, the quality of the services that you provide will be lower, and maybe you don't know that, but many companies, when they detect, for example, Sony PlayStation, when they detect that some addresses are behind a carrier grade NAT, what they do is they block those IPv4 addresses forever. They put them in a blacklist. You can pray them, please clear me from the blacklist. They don't do. Why? Because the games don't work, and this is just one example. There are other examples. The games don't work behind the carrier grade NAT. So that's negative for the region, clearly. If you cannot access a market where you can increase the number of addresses that you can get and probably at the long term decrease the price. I think it's clear. Believe me, I am not working or I don't got commissions from any IP broker or anything like that, okay? So don't think I am trying to sell you this. I am trying to say I am deploying IPv6. I see the problems that you have to deploy IPv6 when you don't have even small blocks in addition to what you have right now.
Okay, thank you. First of all, concerning the market, may I come in now? Okay, good. We don't have the concept of market in our region here. So I don't know where it is coming from. When somebody is selling at that table, it is illegal. That's why I'm expecting you to defend the review policy when people are attacking it on the last call. We need, if you really want the right thing to be done, please support the review policy. That's the first point. We are not in a race here. We have our resources. I don't know where you got the statistic from to say this will do this, this will do that. No. I'm sure these are mere assumptions. But in actual fact, this proposal is solving somebody's problem in our region here. The legacy, you know the faith, can go and come back. Nobody needs IPv from other region or from our region here. So what does that read? The ASN? So please, this policy, I oppose it.
Thank you, Marcus. You can continue, George.
I am taking the opportunity to answer another of the questions. The reason why I put IPv6 and ASN here is because if a company wants to move from one region to another and get registered locally in that region, they need to move all together their IPv4 and IPv6 resources together with the ASN. It don't make sense that a company move from one region to another, they keep the existing IPv4 addresses and they need to remember their IPv6 ones. That's negative for the IPv6 deployment. Next question. Let's see if I can remember which one. I think I explained it already in the previous response why intra-RIR is not sufficient. It's not sufficient because you have a limited number of addresses in the region. So if the region is growing in terms of internet penetration, the number of addresses will not be sufficient. You need something from outside. And yes, some addresses can go from inside to outside, but I believe, according to the statistics, that it will be much more addresses coming in than coming out. I can ensure that? No, nobody can. But that's a normal, let's say, market or economic situation. When things equilibrate, there is more competition, there are better prices for addresses at the long term, initially maybe not, and that helps everyone, especially this region, which compared to the others is the one which is lagging behind, again, in terms of IPv6 deployment, not just in terms of IPv4 addresses. I got another question which was definition of RIR, more or less, right? Regional Internet Registry. I am not probably the best guy to define that, but basically we have 5 regions in the world in terms of internet registration, let's call it this way, and AFRINIC is one of them, and then we have RIPE NCC for Europe and Middle East, 18 for North America, LACNIC, Latin American, Caribbean, IPNIC, Asia Pacific.
Just sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't that the question. I was asking about the real meaning of regional in this
Regional Internet Registry.
Yeah.
Okay, so just the description of RIR.
Yeah.
Regional Internet Registry.
No, the real meaning of regional. What do you mean by regional?
Regional, in this case, for Africa is the continent. For Europe, for RIP NCCs, Europe and Middle East.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Next one was why the status of legacy is lost? Because we defined that way in the policy. And this is defined that way in other regions, not in all of them, but I think it's good for the registration. If we mandate in our policy that incoming legacy registries from other regions lose the status of legacy, it means we have somehow more control and they become part of the system. So again, that's good for AFRINIC, right? That's the reason I put that way in the policy, because I believe it's the best thing we can do. I believe the only region where that status is not lost is RIP. Maybe Marco can correct me. The only region where the status of legacy is not lost is in RIP, but in the others I think is lost. So I think that's good for the region. Alan, if it's related to this one?
Yeah. It's related to this legacy things.
Yeah.
Making legacy. So one way of doing it is what you said. Then said when legacy move, then he lost the legacies. But the other way is what a RIP is doing, to allow legacy to remain legacy, but just has a certain relationship agreement. Okay, then we keep the information. So we don't necessarily need to cancel the legacy status. You leave it at legacy, but just make sure that they join the system, because anyway, they are coming to the system anyway. But so, I don't think, and if you put the way it is, people have less incentive for moving their legacy to see the legacy status be cancelled at destination.
I understand what you mean, but I don't really think I agree with that. I think if we are working in the sense of community, the best deal we can do is lose the status of legacy forever. Because I think that's better for the community. I mean, we can spend hours and hours and hours discussing about this. It don't make sense. Let's do it in the list probably. But I really think from my heart of community, not my personal view, if I have addresses as legacy, I will not like that. But as I don't have addresses and I am thinking as community, I think the best as community we can do is reduce and reduce and reduce as much as possible the number of legacy addresses that are not part of the full system, let's say.
Can we move forward, Jordan?
Yeah.
Have you other questions?
Regarding the maximum, again, this is something that we can discuss. I don't think that will make sense, and I am not sure if we put a maximum that will keep the reciprocity status with other regions. So maybe that will mean we have a policy, but we cannot actually change addresses with other regions. So it's something that we will need to check, okay? And again, the maximum, it's already set up because it's limited to the number of legacy resources that remain in this region. So we have a maximum. So it's statistically impossible. There is no region, there is no way all the legacy owners of this region decide to sell all of them to outside. No way. I cannot believe that, because probably they are using them. So they need. It could, but do you really think it makes sense? Do you really think that ISPs here will sell IPv4 addresses when, if they need to buy later, they will pay more expensive? I don't think it makes sense. It may happen. I am not denying it. I think I explained it again several times about why transferring IPv6, and I think I answered more or less all the questions. If I forgot any, please tell me or catch me in the break or whatever.
Okay, Madhvi,
Yes.
3 comments?
Yes. Willy Manga, what does the community think about possible future RPKI complication regarding ASN transfers? Now we have 2 other comments, but they did not come through the chat room. because the participants were not able to connect to the chat room. Am I allowed to voice the comments?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So Owen DeLong says that he does, I quote, "I do not support the policy as written. I would support it if the restriction on outbound transfers were removed. The restrictions are not, in my humble opinion, reciprocal as required in the ARIN policy. I do support the change to limit IPv6 and ASN transfers in either direction to those that are M&A or relocation related." From Mark Elkins, I support the policy. Mark Elkins is from POSIX Systems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. George, I don't think you need to reply to that if you...
Well, the ASN implications, I think that ship already departed, because there are other regions that allow that, so the impact, we are not going to change the impact, okay? That's one. And the other one is related to what Owen said about he support the policy without no legacy. I think I misunderstand him, because in the list I understood the contrary. But the thing is, I put the legacy restriction because the previous discussions about this kind of policies in the list were having the consideration in the community like we need to protect somehow our resources. And I think this is the best protection we can have, and at the same time be able to get resources from other regions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, George.
One of the questions was about the legacy definition.
I'm sorry, I cannot allow you.
You didn't reply.
I'm sorry, we cannot allow you. We have time, so we have to spend...
catch me later.
Yeah, you can catch him during the mailing list, because we decide to retain this proposal to the mailing list for more input. We see there are an invalid issue to be more, to have more discussion on the mailing list, then return back to the PPM. Thank you, Jordi, very much.
Please, let's have this discussion now in the mailing list, not 1 week before the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for this announcement.